Hello and welcome to another episode of the And Both podcast. My guest this week is Suzie Driscoll. She is a mom, a board-certified occupational therapist specializing in pediatric feeding therapy, and the founder of Tiny and Mighty Therapy. Before starting her own outpatient practice, Tiny and Mighty, she worked at Seattle Children's Hospital with children ranging from newborn to age 21. This experience ignited a passion for her around infant feeding and understanding the impact of first milestones in building a positive relationship with eating. She opened Tiny and Mighty Therapy to focus on feeding strategies for babies and to support parents navigating feeding challenges. As a mom, she understands how valuable it is to have a village and believes in working as a team with your support network to provide the best loving care for your little one. So Suzie and I recorded this episode on the week of the 5-year anniversary of the start of COVID. And so we discussed that a little bit because we both had kids around that time. And so the impact of that is reflected on, we'll say, in this episode. So I hope you enjoy. It is always lovely to have another OT on because I feel like the more we talk about the things that we do and the more people hear about all of the different ways that OT can be a part of inpatient, outpatient, day-to-day things. I think that is really cool, and always love to support another therapist who is out there kind of doing their own thing and trying to help people along the way. So without further ado, here is Suzie. Hello and welcome to the And Both podcast. Here we are going to hear from moms and those in motherhood that are doing the thing that works for them. They are honoring themselves alongside the all-encompassing role and level of expectation that is motherhood. And we are going to hear from as many different people as possible in their own experience. So you can find people to relate to. You can hear stories that will make you laugh, make you cry, all of the above, and that we will come together as a community to support one another in a way that is holistic and honoring of the woman and the mother as a whole. Hello and welcome to another episode of the And Both podcast. I am here with Suzie Driscoll. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, it's nice to be here.
I'm really thrilled for a lot of reasons. I'm always thrilled. I'm always thrilled to talk to people. I say this every time I come on, and it's not disingenuous. I'm like, another person who wants to talk about their motherhood experience outside of life. Like, yes, please come on down. But I'm excited because of the particular week that we're recording and some of the things that I think that we'll cover in here. So how about we start off with you just letting people know a little bit about you?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Suzie and I'm a pediatric occupational therapist. And Ashley just reminded me that, it's the 5-year anniversary. So it's kind of like the whole lockdowns happened. And I'm glad, I'm not glad that happened. It's actually perfect timing for our recording today because that is kind of like when my first journey to motherhood started with my first baby. And it's a time that I will never forget. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and chat with you and share a little bit about my motherhood journey so far.
Yeah, I love it. Well, the one thing that I, was like burning question in my pocket is, so you worked in inpatient, right? Prior to COVID?
I was actually at outpatient at
Okay.
Seattle Children's Hospital. Yeah.
And so you told me this when we talked before that you worked across the street from the first COVID patient to come into the US.
That's right. Great memory. Yes. That was very nerve-wracking. I think, just at the tail end of my first trimester or maybe the beginning of my second trimester. And I hadn't really shared with my coworkers quite yet because I wasn't quite showing yet, it being my first pregnancy and just with everything kind of starting to spiral down, in that kind of like early March, mid-March timeframe. No, sorry. Going back to the first US patient being hospitalized, that was January. So that was definitely in my first trimester. And yes, it was right across the street from where I was working at. And I remember being super nervous about it, but I couldn't express how nervous I was because no one else knew I was pregnant. Yeah.
Isn't that just the pregnancy experience, like in a nutshell, right? It's like utter panic on the inside, but like you might not be ready to tell people. Like I know some people are very comfortable and they like tell people and it is what it is. But like I echo that experience of like, oh my gosh. And I worked inpatient, and so we'd have like people come in, and that was always. I mean, you work in a setting that's most of the people I worked with were women, and so you go in and you're like, oh, this person has implanted seeds, and all of a sudden, like the therapist who's assigned changes, and everyone's like, I know what that means. I know
Yes.
that you are the pregnant lady, and so it's like to have that panic feeling on top of like not knowing what all was coming at the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. On top of it being that global pandemic, the uncertainty kind of just blew out of.
Yeah. So you work outpatient children and your specialty is feeding, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
So it's yeah, tell me about that.
yeah, at the time I was just seeing kids of all, different conditions and concerns. So on top of feeding, I was also seeing a lot of oncology patients who were getting outpatient, treatments, and then they were needing some OT and PT, hands, like, making splints. So I was kind of doing everything at the time. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's hard to do. Like I think that if you don't know a lot about the field, and I mean, let's be honest, how many people are like, oh yeah, OT just rolls right off the tongue. I've got that definition in the bag. I mean, we learn how to talk about it in school because it's so convoluted. But like splints and feeding are some pretty heavy hitters, and to like bounce back and forth during the day is
Yeah, it was really fun because it really kept me on my toes. And like, yeah, exactly. Like 1 hour I was doing like splinting, and the next hour I was doing feeding, and the next hour I was doing like some neuro. Like it was just like so fun. I learned so much. But yeah, and I can talk a little more about that too, about how I decided to just kind of start niching down into feeding.
Yeah, no, I want to hear about that because I am interested, yeah, just in how you picked and what that sort of pathway looked like, especially, that tunnel is being built in the middle of a pandemic as well. So like what was that whole journey?
Yeah. And it might seem a little bit kind of like all over the place, but I promise it like ties together. So yeah, so I gave birth to my first baby in August 2020. And she's had some, initial rocky start to her feeding. We found out that she actually wasn't transferring much at all at her first pediatrician's appointment, and that she had lost more than 11% of her body birth weight, and that she was developing jaundice. So that was kind of my first big like mom guilt like setting, and I can still remember I just felt like the worst mom ever in the world, not realizing that I was not feeding my baby. And working with kids as an OT, you would think like I would have known, but no, it's different when you're like a mom. They can't wear OT hat and a mom hat, right? And
Mhm.
even though I've worked with children, I've never worked with like a literally newborn, like that was like hours old. So yeah, and that kind of journey led me to learn more about infant feeding in general. And because of the pandemic, there weren't a lot of resources available. No, or even if there was, it was the times before like, COVID vaccines came out too. So it was just still so much unknown. Like, do I risk my baby's health and my health to go into a facility, right? And try to get this kind of like addressed? Or do I just kind of try to like wait and see and not risk getting COVID? There's like a lot of factors. And I wish that I had more support during that time, just with the whole, postpartum motherhood journey, but also with feeding therapy support. And that's kind of how I decided to delve into the world of infant feeding more and more. And then here I am today with my own practice too.
I love that. And I mean, it's really interesting. So like your experience, that it's like first baby, right? You have no other sort of reference points. My fourth baby, my last baby was born on March 10th, 2020. And
Goodness.
so I went home. So
Yeah.
you go in there and when you have, a couple other kids or one other kid or whatever, it's a whole different experience, right? Like the nurses are like, "Oh, you know what you're doing." And you're like, kind of. Like I kept another human alive. Let's hope it works."
Yeah.
But I went home and I had a really similar experience with my fourth baby. And he was losing weight like crazy. I was feeding him what I thought all the time. I mean, I'd fed three other people and was
Mhm.
like, this is what we do. We just like, we get together, we hang out, you drink things, you fall asleep, whatever. And not things, milk.
I got you.
Whew, yeah, but he was like, he was losing weight. And I went into the pediatrician and they were like, he's lost too much weight. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? And they were, it was like, you've got to supplement with formula and you've got to pump and so you're doing the like triple feeding thing, which is
Mhm.
just, I mean, for anyone who just heard the term triple feeding and is like, I would like to slam my head in the door because it is just this like gauntlet of exhaustion and guilt and confusion and like so many tears were shed. And I was like, I don't like, I'm supposed to know how to do this stuff because I've done this stuff before. And so I had to take him back into the hospital. He wasn't admitted or anything, but I had to go back in and meet with the lactation consultant because they weigh them and then you feed them and then they weigh them again. But I went back into the hospital the week after, like everything was freshly locked down. Like nobody kind of knew what was going on. Everything was in mass. And I am postpartum and like all of this stuff is still going on with me. And I have this brand new baby zipped in my husband's raincoat.
Yeah.
It's like this little teeny tiny thing. And I'm not kidding. It was like one of the scariest things because you don't know. And they're like, is he gonna have to be admitted? He didn't lose that much weight, but like you're the first person that I've talked to that has had that similar experience. So it's just like and I had breastfed before and was like, I need more resources.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is the best we can do. Like we didn't have a home visit. We didn't have anything that like had happened with all the others. It's so
Wow.
weird. His first visit was in the office, and then all the visits after that for his first year were in the parking lot or the back of my car because he couldn't go into the building.
Uh,
But just this experience of like
I-
I know, like I want to do the right thing and I want to like follow all the rules, but like it all went sideways. But like babies still need to be fed. And like babies are still coming. It's just oh,
oh.
I have lots of feelings about this 5 year.
Yeah. And you said it was March 10th, so it's happy belated birthday.
Yeah. It is. Yes, we are recording this March 11th. And yeah, I know this week is just this whole week. I have these weird feelings. Like my daughter is the same age. My younger daughter is the same age my older daughter was. And my son is the same age my older son was.
Wow.
They're wearing the same clothes. Like they're learning the same things in school. Like it's when was your second born then?
Oh, well, that's also another story. I feel like I have so much to share. See, this is what happened
Share away. Come on in. We crack this thing open.
well, so I've had couple losses in the meantime. I had my first loss in 2022, so 2 years after my daughter was born. And then I recently had another loss back in September. So 6 months ago, right? Yeah, I can't do math anymore after I became a mom.
Yeah, or after like 8 p.m. Like
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
wow. I'm so sorry. That
Well,
is
thank you. But that was that's like a whole nother, I think, story too. But I don't know when this is going to air. I haven't shared like publicly yet. I am currently pregnant. And
congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. So yeah, it's motherhood. Just this whole thing has been quite the journey.
Yeah. How do you feel? How do you feel right now? Like, I mean, not the pregnancy, like, oh, how you doing? But like, how are you doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think kind of related to the whole, anniversary of COVID. It's actually really interesting to me because it's a very similar timeline as my daughter, my first daughter, because this baby is going to also be born in August. So it's exactly like almost 5 years apart. And it's like almost like deja vu because like very similar timeline. Like, I remember very vividly, like my body remembers like this time 5 years ago, like things were starting to shut down, right? And then like,
Hmm.
I'm just like, oh my God, like the state of the world, just like everything, like, please don't let things repeat. Please don't let there be another pandemic, just,
Hmm.
um, yeah, it's kind of, I'm like, wow, like I wasn't able to do all these things. Like earlier today, I went to lunch with a friend, right? Like I did not do this at 19 weeks when I was pregnant back in 2020. So it's kind of healing in a way, but also I'm still kind of like fingers crossed, like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's that weird, like, you don't know what you don't know. It's like, all of the, like, the mommy and me stuff. Like, anyone who became a mom for the first time during the pandemic, like, I I hope that, there's, like, a whole tribe of moms who became moms before the pandemic who are like, "No, it's actually, like, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. Like, it's not supposed to feel this way because, it's so many things that you didn't get a chance to do." And it's like this awareness of the loss that you had from that time that you didn't even know you had because that was the first time. That's wild. Like 5 years I mean, not to the day, but 5 years close enough that's wild.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. And so yeah, I mean, and so also setting wise, like you were working in a unit or an outpatient. And now you have your own practice. So how did you go from like my daughter is having these issues and I want to learn more about this to now you have a practice and that's got to be a whole different maternity leave situation, whatever.
yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So regarding like the maternity leave, yeah, back when I was taking my leave and I was part of the bigger organization, like I had the HR helping me, through the process, navigate that. And, I got the paid leave. I didn't have to worry about it. And for this one, I live in Washington State where we luckily have a pretty good paid family medical leave where we, as a self-employed person, we can opt in and pay like quarterly, fees, I guess, where we pay into it and then can have the benefit. So I'm really lucky that way. That's kind of what I will be doing once I'm on maternity leave. So I at least don't have to worry about, being on leave and not having any sort of income. So that's
Hmm.
really nice. Yeah. I feel lucky.
That's awesome. Do you have other therapists that you work with that
Yeah, no, I'm currently sole practitioner. So it's just me and yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. No, so you can, I mean, you have that ability to be like, this is when I will stop, or this is what my schedule will be, and then this is what.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Do you like private practice?
I do. I feel like there's pros and cons to everything, right?
Hmm.
Some pros are, definitely I get to really indulge in like my passions. Like where if I was working at a different organization, you're kind of like it's up to like the practice owner or the hospital, wherever, like your caseload can vary, right? Like I mentioned, like I was seeing everything, which was great for my learning, but I think my brain was kind of ready to really like start niching down on, what I really loved. And that's like currently feeding. And so that way I can really explore, what I love doing and become really specialized in it and I have the flexibility. Like my daughter is going to be ready to go into kindergarten in the fall. So, like I haven't experienced that world quite yet, but, I hear there are early release days, you have to pick them up if you don't, get into after school care. So you need some flexibility with your schedule
Hmm.
where you might not have that working for a different practice or organization. So I'm really grateful for that. But the cons are it's so much more, but it's
It's
worth it to me.
Yeah. I mean, it is. That's like it is so much more, but with more work, you get more. You don't get more freedom. Like I don't want to put it out there like, oh, you just like quit working in this structured place and then you just eat lunch every day and like everything is
No.
great. Like that's not it. But you have the ability, like you said, like you have the ability to really control what you're doing and who you're seeing. And so it's just feeding that you're doing now.
Yep.
You've really like honed in on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And of course, with the babies that I see with feeding, there's always other things involved, right? Like most often it's the delayed milestones because feedings take the whole wait window around the clock. They don't get as many opportunities for tummy time, for example. So they're not able to tolerate tummy time for more than like 30 seconds, even at 4 months of age, right? Or they're not rolling at 6 months, or they have shorter concentration. So it's all like related. But yeah, that's kind of like my focus. And I also address those because feeding is everything. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, feeding. I mean, that's amazing. I love that. So what is I mean, in sort of to not dance around the whole thing a little bit, but like what does it look like for you right now? Like you taking care of you. I'm gonna OT the
Mhm.
OT. What what does it look like for you to take care of
Oh,
you,
good.
knowing that like you've got a 4, almost 5-year-old. You've got a practice going. You are pregnant. You're like staring down deadlines. And
Yeah.
like, what does that look like?
Yeah, like in OT terms, like my routines and occupations. I feel like sometimes I'm kind of like duck floating on the water, where on the surface I look like I'm kind of navigating it well, like peacefully, but under the water I'm like
Hmm.
my feet are just like frantically trying to stay afloat and constantly trying to put out like all the little fires. Like right now I have attention to put out this fire, and then I have to attend to this fire, and then this one, and then you just kind of keep playing, like juggling different things. And sometimes I drop the ball on certain things. I try to prioritize like work and family, of course, and try to fit in whatever else is left over in my day, but that's not often. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Motherhood, just juggling all the things.
Hmm. And I think too, like I like that it's not like I just try to balance everything. Like
Mm.
balance is a joke. Balance is the meanest word in the English language when it
Oh
comes
my,
to motherhood
yeah.
because it doesn't exist, right? Like you're not going to get there, and like trying to get there is futile in the in the truest sense of the
Yeah.
word.
Yeah. That's my goal, but yeah.
Yeah. What about when your older daughter starts school and y- yeah, I have one of my kids, two of my kids have a half day tomorrow, but they go to different schools. So
Oh,
one is at 12 and one is at 12:45. And so, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like I jumped 2 feet into self-employment when my oldest went to kindergarten. I practiced in a inpatient rehab setting for years and years. And it was looking at that schedule, that upcoming like school year calendar, and I thought, I have no idea how we're going to make this work
no. Yeah.
because it was, and that was also, I was telling some students about this last week. It was also the first year the hospital they worked at, they came and told us that the the full-time staff was going to work the holidays. And so
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
you had to work Thanksgiving. It
Uh,
was, there was like a whole block of them and they said, okay, but you have to work X number of holidays. And I thought, and it was like maybe June when they told us this. And I had already started my own private practice that I was
mm,
doing on the side. And then in August, right before my daughter started school, I gave my notice and then left my badge right before Labor Day weekend and she started school and I was like, I don't know what this means and I don't know what this is going to look like and I don't know if I'm going to make any money doing this,
yeah.
but that like I couldn't do that anymore.
Not to prioritize. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the beauty of our profession is that, at least this is how I felt when I was kind of taking that risk, leaving my badge, and you can always go back, or there will always be other OT jobs. So I felt okay about taking, I'm not a risk taker at all, but I felt okay. Like if this doesn't pan out, I can always go a different direction.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and you can do so many things with it. You can pivot and still be under the same license. You're not beholden to, I say this laughingly because I would never do it, but like I could go and work in a school.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to, but
Yeah.
I could.
Exactly. Like you could.
I could. It could happen. It could transpire.
Yeah.
And so what do you think about like for the future of this? Like how do you see post August? How do you see all of this?
Great question. And that will be kind of another time of change in my motherhood journey, right? Now adding a second little one. That's actually what I've been thinking about a lot. I was sure I will have to make some sacrifices to my work schedule, at least for the first few years, right? I think going through the experience with my daughter has given me some perspective. Like I can't do everything. There will have to be some, what's the word I'm looking for? Compromises. I'm trying to come to peace with that because work is really important to me. But at the same time, like this baby will most likely be my last because I'm 39 and I don't think I can handle another heartache of loss, like physically and mentally.
Mm.
If this baby, wasn't to be, and regardless. So if when he's born in August, my daughter will start kindergarten this September. He'll be 1 month old. So that'll be quite the adventure, kind of trying to find our new norm and routine and schedule. Like, how am I going to get ready? How am I going to get the baby ready? And how am I going to get my 5-year-old ready? And then drop her off to school. Just like all these logistics are kind of swirling in my head right now. We'll just sort of have to see, like, what makes the best sense for our family schedule. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all different, right? 0 to 1 is the hardest. I
Yeah.
will maintain this like forever and ever. 0 to 1 is the hardest because there's just so much that you don't know. There's so much that you don't know. And then, it's yeah, I think that was how I felt about it. And I talked with other moms who have, larger families and, because everyone always thinks like, oh, you have like 4 kids or 5 kids or 6 kids or even more than that. It's like, oh my God, it's just madness. I still maintain 0 to 1. And my first baby was a colored trick baby, but because she slept and she ate and she was very cute. They're all cute, but that's why you have, you know, there's more of them. The,
Yeah.
but that 0 to 1, like not knowing.
Yeah.
And then you've already done this, but you did this with no resources because pandemic. A lot. So where do you see in the terms of your practice now? I have questions here because this always fascinates me. I worked with an OT that did outpatient feeding and totally had that phenomenon of like very calm on the outside, but like on the inside, like I'd talk to her after she saw a kid and then they'd leave and I'd be like, wow, that was kind of interesting. And she would just sort of like download this whole dissertation on what just happened and why it just happened. I hadn't even gone to OT school yet. And I was like,
Oh,
did we see the same kid? Because I caught none of that. I got none of it whatsoever. And she was like, oh no, this is because this was happening and this is why and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know if I could do that because it was just brilliant. Like she's just absolutely brilliant. But like, so on on this end, I have a little bit of awareness about what outpatient feeding looks like, but when you have people come in, do you notice a lot of trends? Like you said, there's like delayed milestones, but do you notice trends that are different from maybe even a couple of years ago?
ooh, that is an excellent question. Hmm. Yeah, I think so. A lot of the babies I see have either concerns for potential tongue ties or they have already seen a provider, like a pediatric dentist, who have confirmed they have ties. And I think tongue tie right now is still kind of an area where there's a lot of still studies coming out. So there's a lot of controversy around it, right? So some people, and I can totally see both sides, where I think like with every profession, there are better providers and there are not so great providers, right? And unfortunately, it kind of depends on where you live and who you see and what kind of additional supports you have. So outcomes can vary so greatly depending on that and the baby and the family. And I think that's where like a lot of the controversy comes from because some people have had great experience. They're like, this saved my baby's feeding, right? And some people like were worse off than before we had the frenectomy procedure. So I think in the past couple of years, I think things are progressing where people are becoming more aware how, therapy before and after the procedure, whether by like an OT or SLP who's specially trained in tongue ties, it's like another area where you have to get additional training, right? Outside of like grad school and then more continuing education with like more general feeding and then like tongue ties. It's like you just keep going down, down, down this like
Mm-hmm.
rabbit hole where I think people are starting to realize the benefits of having therapists on board, feeding therapists on board before and after to help prepare like their muscles, right? To become stronger and have more coordination. Because the best analogy I have is like, you're not going to walk into a surgeon's office and get your knee replaced that day and then expect to start walking or running the next day, right? You would most likely have a consultation and they would recommend some like PT before and after to help with, having that best functional outcome. So I think that trend is definitely happening, which is great because I think often where families go see somebody who are like, yep, I'm just going to clip your tongue. And then there's no other support. And like the tongue may, heal tighter than before. And it's just like causing more dysfunction and stress for the family and the baby. So I hope that answered your question. It was kind of like a long winded answer.
Yeah, no, I like that because I think too that speaks to a lot of some of the things that we've talked about is that you have this idea of like knowing more and knowing that prevention. I mean, when I saw knee surgery patients,
Mhm.
you could always tell the people that did prehab before they saw after. And I mean, it makes sense, right? If you're gonna adjust how somebody eats, you kind of want them to be in the best position possible when they go out to do that.
Exactly.
What's the healing time on a frenectomy?
Yeah, great question. Generally, like the first 4 weeks is pretty crucial for kind of that wound management and the healing for the new frenulum to develop. And ideally, you want that new frenulum to develop so that it's like nice and elongated. So it has a lot of like range of motion where it before had like decreased range of motion. And then, yeah, it continues to heal though for up to a year, I believe, just under, the surface, right? All the scar tissues kind of laying down and yeah, continue to construct and yeah.
I'm fascinated. I'm totally fascinated by that because I know people that have had it. Their kids have had the procedure before, but not a lot of talk around therapy that would be ongoing or starting ahead of time.
Yeah. I think that's the trend that I've been seeing in the last couple of years.
I feel like maybe it is one of the potential, not benefits. I will not say there were benefits, but one of the potential like good parts that came out is that there seems to be an emerging awareness about prevention as not a bad word in healthcare. Like that practice that I had before COVID was aging in place.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So, but at the time, I mean, people were like, "Why?
Mm,
Like, why do I need to think about this?" So, clearly that's not the person that called me, but like, there'd always be like a sibling who was like, "Why do we need to talk about this right now? Why are we having this conversation?" And then fast forward, there's a pandemic, and all of a sudden my phone is ringing off the hook. But I wasn't going into anyone's house. I just had a baby,
no.
and it
Yeah.
was pandemic.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
according to my kids' school, it was a snowstorm because they came home with little backpacks with worksheets. And I was like, there's no snow in March, guys. We live in New England, but there's no
Yeah.
snow coming in March. Like writing's on the wall. But I do feel like there's more of a focus on how can we prevent things from getting to whatever point it was. And maybe that's a result of the fact that things got so bad. I don't, that's my best guess.
Yeah. I agree.
So when you go out on maternity leave, who's going to cover your people?
Great question. So luckily, like the population that I support are mostly babies under 18 months. So they tend to make really fast progress. So I would have them on my caseload for maybe like on average 2 to 5 visits. So they graduate pretty quickly.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I don't really need to like have coverage while I'm gone because what I'm kind of envisioning is I'll probably start ramping down like a month prior to my expected due date. Hopefully, baby, this is only if the baby will stay for the full, 40 weeks, right? So hopefully that'll be the case. But my ideal world is, yeah, like I'll start ramping down about a month prior so that I won't be taking any new evals in that last month so that I can like graduate most of the babies. So by the time my baby comes, then I won't need to, those babies won't be left hanging. Yeah.
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 And then when you come back, you just sort of open up evals again and bring people
Exactly.
on.
Exactly.
Who refers to you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've had my practice for about 2.5 years now. And in the beginning, there were a lot of like pediatric dentists, doulas, lactation consultants, and, as I made more and more connections with my community, like that, word of mouth grew as well with, former families that I worked with would share with their friends or, family, some pediatricians. So it's been really nice to kind of, and Google has actually been a really good resource too for families. I don't know how this happened, but when you like Google, like, baby feeding therapy Seattle or something like that, I'm like on the first page. So that's great.
That's awesome.
I have no idea how SEO works, but it totally worked somehow. So yeah.
So you get a lot of people in that way.
Mhm.
And do you take insurance?
I do not. I am
Okay.
out of network, so I accept cash pay and I provide super bills. And a lot of my families have been getting really good reimbursements through their insurance company. Some are not as good. It just depends on their individual plan. But on average, they've been getting pretty good reimbursements. So that's been nice.
That's
Model.
awesome.
Yeah.
You only see kids in person?
So for most of my caseloads, it's in person because I really have to be hands on and,
Yeah.
but let's say the first eval was in person and then the family just wants to check in virtually. I offer that option.
That's nice. So then there's the flexibility, like magic right there, is that you could stack your evals and then have the follow-ups that way.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah. It's been nice. Yeah.
What do you so the I yeah, this I'm still stuck on the idea that there's like so many cool ways for people to find you. And that because I think too, like healthcare insurance or health insurance in this country is like bananas. That like when you go private pay, you have more flexibility. And I think people automatically assume like this is an outrageous thing. Like if it's private pay, and you're like, it's not really. It doesn't like that doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means that you have the ability to say yes to people that you wouldn't necessarily be able to say yes to if you were just insurance based.
Exactly. And that was important to me because kind of going back to like some of that prevention piece, when I was working at the hospital, I was seeing a lot of kids who are like 8, 9, 10 years old and have had these, feeding difficulties since they were 1 or 2 or even younger, right? If you like really dig back and go back. So I was like, what if, I could be the person who can address this like early on, right? In their first weeks or months of life then they wouldn't have had to, oh my God, I can't talk anymore. Sorry. They wouldn't need to have gone through these years of struggles as a whole family because it affects the whole family, right? Like meal times. And so I think depending on how you address it, the insurance companies may not be on board if the baby's not quite to the level of where, because like it's all about reactiveness for I think our current medical care, right? Like
Hmm.
there's a problem and then you address it versus like prevention. I feel like that's still kind of the norm. Where I'm like, I want to address this now, so that
Yeah. It's so smart. It's so smart
yeah,
because, who was doing this before?
not a lot. That's kind of where I was stuck. I was like, I have no support.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Oh my gosh. So will you do this when you come back and all of that stuff? Is this the where you envision this going? Like, is this doing pediatric feeding? And I don't mean that to be insulting in any way. I just mean based on the how you're talking about the research and that piece, do you want to grow the practice or do you like having, you are in there and you get to say yes, no, please and thank you. Because it is a huge investment in time to certify and things like that. Like, do you want to have the it grow or do you want to be very niche?
Yeah. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, are you saying like, do I want to kind of stay in this like small practice versus like hiring more people? Is that
Yeah. Yeah, do you envision it being
ah,
because I don't know. I think you can go both ways and
yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah. I love being able to provide like undivided attention to the families and the babies. Like my emails are at least hour and a half long. And I love being able to like really devote that time to them. Yeah. And just like, being that person, like where, you've been through it too. So you also have a lot of like empathy, right? You know what they're going through. Um, so I do love being kind of like my small practice because it's just like what I want to give back to the community, right? And also at the same time, if I were to hire someone, even like sometimes I'm like, I wish I had a rehab aide to help me disinfect and clean everything because I'm like doing
Mhm.
everything by myself. But like, I can't, my brain space is so full right now. I can't imagine like having another tab open to like hire someone and then train that person and payroll, like all these things that I never thought I would own a business in the first place. That's really daunting to me. And that's going to take away from my treatment time with families. Right. And that's like that is at the heart of my practice. Like all these admin business stuff, I could care less about. I only do it because I have to. So I don't know, maybe eventually when I'm older, maybe the kids are older and they have to go through all these like sports practice and extracurriculars, maybe I may have to hire someone then. But at the time in the near like few years, I think it's nice to be just me, if that makes
I
sense.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that can be the tendency too, where people are like, I have this thing and it's working really well, so let's just do more of this, and that's not necessarily where the magic is. I love it. It's really cool, and I'm so thrilled for you, to be heading towards another baby, and especially having gone through what you've gone through to get to that point, and a pandemic and all of that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hoping that there's people in Washington that are listening and are like, I've actually been looking. But yeah, where can people find you? I think, people being able to reach out and ask questions if you're not necessarily shut into that space, how can people find you?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is either by my www.tinyandmightytherapy.com or my Instagram, which is, I always mess this up, Instagram.com/ right? Tiny and mighty _OT. Those would be the best ways to reach me.
I love the name of your practice.
Thank you. I was inspired by my baby who was tiny but mighty.
I love it. I think that's really cool. I think like it's really awesome that you took this experience that was heinous and turned it into something that is going to help and is helping so many other families.
You know, it means a lot coming from another mom who had the baby in the super uncertain time in that history. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I would have loved, I would have called you. If someone had been like, hello, OT, I have another OT who is a specialty in that, I would have been like, the car would have been running. Like, I need someone who can figure this out with me, or I can figure this out with. That's a better way to say that. I can figure this out with, because I know that things aren't, and I can problem solve things, but I can't go get any sort of feeding CEU situation because I'm trying to like do this. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
And I know like I'm not the only one, which is another weird phenomenon, right? Is like you feel like you're the only one who's going through this. And then I'm sitting here listening to you talk about this thinking, holy cow, like there's so many similarities. It's crazy.
I love, because I felt alone in some of my, during some points of my motherhood journey. So I just want to be that person who makes people feel less alone as well.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. What you're doing is amazing. And I like wish you the best in everything. And I hope that people that are, even just have questions, like will reach out, because even if you can't see them because they're not in the area, like being able to create a network of resources for people is you're going to impact them in a significant way.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions. There are other, feeding therapists in our country that are doing very similar things, and I feel like they're like my unofficial coworkers, because I miss having coworkers, right? So if like, let's say somebody from, I don't know, New Mexico or something, or California is having questions, I can help them be connected to those feeding therapists.
I love that. Well, I hope if anyone is listening and has questions or whatever, that they will reach out, and I will make sure that everything gets linked in the show notes, and that way you can find people that you need to find. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was really great to chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor, and it's been really fun to connect with you.